learners, welcome back to the Speak Like Leader podcast. This is your cozy space to learn real, simple English through natural conversations.
Hey everyone, I'm Zoe.
And I'm James. Today's topic is something that gets personal very quickly.
Yes, because it sounds simple at first, but then it suddenly hits you.
Exactly. It's that kind of topic where your past goals quietly show up in your mind like, hey, remember us?
Yes, all those unfinished plans, abandoned routines, and forgotten motivation.
Today, we're talking about something really important. Why you quit too early without even realizing it.
A slightly uncomfortable topic. My favorite kind.
Same here. The kind of topic where people say, interesting episode, while remembering things they gave up after a few days.
Like that gym membership after 1 week?
Exactly. But honestly, it's not about failure. It's more like a short emotional experiment.
Yes, because quitting early doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's very quiet.
It can sound like, maybe this isn't for me, or I'll start again later.
Or the classic one, I'll restart on Monday.
Monday is the most overworked day in the world.
Poor Monday carries everyone's motivation.
But here's the truth. People don't always quit because they are lazy.
Yes, often it's because things become slow, repetitive, and unclear.
And in that quiet phase, it's easy to feel like nothing is happening, even when something is.
Exactly. Real growth is often invisible at the beginning.
And today, we're going to explore that whole journey. Why people lose energy in the middle, and why they leave just before progress appears.
But before we go deeper, let's start with something important.
Yes, the beginning. Because honestly, the beginning of anything feels amazing.
Oh yes, the beginning always feels like a fresh chapter in life. New goals, new routines, new energy, maybe even a new notebook or planner that makes everything feel possible again.
Exactly. And that beginning phase carries a very special emotional energy where everything feels clean, hopeful, and full of potential. As if you've already become the person you want to be just by deciding to start.
And that's why the beginning often leaves such a strong impression on us, because it creates a powerful memory of excitement and self-belief that stays in our mind long after the motivation fades.
Yes, because in those early days, people genuinely feel, this time I'm serious, this time I will not stop. And they mean it completely, not pretending at all, but fully connected to their motivation and energy.
But the interesting thing is that this early motivation is real, but also fragile, because it is driven more by imagination and excitement than by consistency and discipline in real life.
Exactly. Because in your imagination, everything already looks perfect. You are disciplined, focused, confident, successful, and your future self is smiling like everything is under control.
Yes, your future self somehow wakes up at 5 a.m., drinks water, works out, reads books, and never gets distracted by anything in life.
But that's the important point. This stage feels powerful, but it is not yet tested by reality. Because real progress starts when excitement disappears and discipline is the only thing left.
And that's where many people misunderstand themselves, because they believe that strong starting energy means they will automatically continue. But excitement is not the same thing as endurance or long-term consistency.
Yes, starting is easy because it feels emotional and inspiring, but continuing is different because it requires showing up even when nothing feels exciting or rewarding in the moment.
And that is exactly where the journey becomes interesting, because after the beginning comes the stage that nobody really talks about, the quiet middle phase, where things stop feeling new and start feeling repetitive.
Yes, the middle stage, where there are no big results yet, no visible transformation, just effort, repetition, and silence. And that silence can slowly make people question everything they are doing.
And that middle phase is exactly where most people start to struggle, because the excitement is gone, but the results haven't fully arrived yet. So it feels like you are putting effort into something that is not giving you anything back.
Yes, and that is where the mind becomes very tricky because it starts asking questions like, is this even working? Or, am I wasting my time? Even when real growth might actually be happening quietly beneath the surface.
And the hardest part is that progress in this stage is often invisible. So instead of seeing results, you only feel repetition, tiredness, and sometimes boredom, which slowly drains your emotional energy.
Exactly. And when something starts to take a toll on you over time, it doesn't always happen in one big moment, but slowly, like small drops of doubt building up until motivation feels weaker and weaker.
And then people start becoming reluctant, meaning they are not fully willing anymore. They delay things, they avoid tasks, and they tell themselves, I'll do it later. Even though deep down, they still care.
Yes, and what makes it more dangerous is that this stage still looks logical from the outside. You might say, maybe this goal is not right for me, but sometimes it is not honesty, it is just exhaustion disguised as clarity.
And because there is no instant reward, the brain starts to protect you by suggesting escape. Like, maybe stop now, maybe try something new. Because quitting feels easier than continuing without visible progress.
Exactly. And that's why so many people leave right at this stage, not because they cannot succeed, but because the process stops feeling exciting, and when magic disappears, patience becomes the real challenge.
And then comes the most dangerous question of all. Is anything even happening? Because once that thought enters, it becomes very hard to stay emotionally connected to the journey.
Yes, and that is where we need to understand something very important. Growth does not always show itself in obvious ways. Sometimes it is happening quietly, while you feel like nothing is changing at all.
Exactly. Because even when results are not visible yet, you might still be developing patience, discipline, focus, and emotional strength, which are all forms of real progress, even if they are not immediately noticeable.
And that's why perception becomes so important, because your perception of progress is not always accurate, meaning the way you judge your improvement can be completely wrong at times.
Yes, because your brain is not always fair. It often ignores small improvements and only looks for dramatic results, like it is waiting for something big and exciting to validate your effort.
Exactly. But real growth is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, slow, and invisible, like becoming slightly calmer, more focused, or less afraid without even realizing it.
And this is especially true in learning English. For example, you may feel stuck, but maybe you understand more than before. Maybe you hesitate less. Maybe you feel slightly more confident speaking.
Yes, and that is why invisible progress is so important, because it builds the foundation for visible success later, even if at first it feels like nothing significant is happening.
But many people make the mistake of wanting proof too early. They want clear results before the process has had enough time to develop naturally.
And when that proof doesn't come quickly, they panic, assuming that no visible result means no progress at all, which is not always true in real life.
So if you are in a quiet phase right now, it doesn't necessarily mean you are stuck or lost. It might actually mean you are in the middle of building something important.
Yes, and in that quiet phase, another powerful misunderstanding appears. People start confusing discomfort with failure, thinking that if something feels hard or awkward, it must be a sign to stop.
And that is such a big mistake, because discomfort is not always a warning signal. Sometimes it simply means you are stretching, learning, and stepping into something new.
Exactly. And often the most uncomfortable moments come right before important breakthroughs, because your brain is adjusting to a new level of thinking, behavior, or identity.
And your brain doesn't always say, you are growing. It often says, this feels strange, maybe stop. Even when you are actually very close to improvement or success.
Yes, and that's why understanding discomfort is so important. Because if every difficult feeling becomes a reason to quit, then real growth never gets the chance to fully develop.
And what makes it even harder is comparison. Because the moment you start comparing your journey with someone else's, your own progress suddenly feels smaller, even if you have actually come a long way.
Yes, and comparison is dangerous because it removes context. You only see someone's finished result, not their struggle, their time, or their silent effort behind the scenes.
Exactly. And growth is never predictable, meaning it does not follow the same timeline for everyone. Some people improve quickly in one area, while others grow slowly but steadily in a deeper way.
And social media makes this worse because it shows life in a very polished and simplified way. Like everything is smooth, fast, and perfectly organized from day one to success.
Yes, like day 1, confused. Day 7, completely transformed. Day 14, glowing, successful, perfect life.
And somehow, there is always a green juice involved.
Always. But real life doesn't work like that. It is messy, uneven, emotional, and full of slow progress that doesn't always look impressive from the outside.
Exactly. And instead of comparing results, it is more useful to focus on willingness. The willingness to continue, to learn, and to stay in the process even when things feel uncomfortable or unclear.
Yes, because maybe you are not perfect yet. Maybe you are not fast yet. But if you are still willing to try, still willing to learn, and still willing to continue, then you are already doing something powerful.
And that willingness is what separates people who grow from people who quit too early. Because growth is not just about ability, it is about staying present in the process long enough for change to happen.
Exactly. Because comparison asks, am I ahead? But growth asks a much more important question. Am I still here?
Yes, and if you are still here, still showing up, still trying, still learning, then your story is not over, even if it feels slow right now.
And sometimes the saddest reality is that people leave just before things begin to shift, just when progress is about to quietly show itself.
Yes, they work hard, they struggle, they doubt, and then right before things improve, they step away. Not because they are incapable, but because they think nothing is changing.
And that is why quitting early can feel so heartbreaking later, because you never truly know how close you were to a breakthrough moment.
Exactly. And progress often doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't give warnings. Sometimes it just quietly begins to appear after a long period of patience.
Like learning a language, you struggle for a long time, and then suddenly one day you understand a joke, or speak naturally, or feel less fear without even noticing when it changed.
Yes, and that is why patience is not just a soft skill. It is a powerful one, because growth often happens while you are busy feeling like nothing is happening at all.
So maybe the truth is this. Sometimes you don't need more talent, you just need more time, more consistency, and more trust in the process.
Yes, but at the same time, not every path is meant to last forever. Sometimes walking away is also right, but that decision should come from clarity and wisdom, not from one tired emotional moment.
Exactly. Not from one bad day, not from one boring week, and not from one moment of doubt that feels louder than everything else.
So the real question becomes, what do you do when you feel like quitting?
How do you stay when every part of you wants to restart your life with a fresh notebook and a new beginning?
That's exactly what we'll talk about next. How to stay when you want to leave.
And honestly, the first thing you need to understand in those moments is that you don't need to fix your entire life in one day, because that pressure itself is what makes people give up too quickly.
Exactly. People often try to solve everything at once. They think if I don't completely transform my life this week, then I'm failing. But that kind of thinking creates unnecessary stress and usually leads to quitting.
So instead, it's better to narrow down your focus, which simply means making things smaller, clearer, and more manageable, so your mind doesn't feel overwhelmed by the size of the goal.
Yes, because when the goal feels too big emotionally, it doesn't just feel like a task, it starts to feel like a judgment on your entire personality or identity.
And that's when people start thinking, I always fail, or I'm not the kind of person who can do this, even though it's just one difficult moment, not their entire story.
Exactly. So you have to be careful not to turn one small setback into a permanent identity label, because that is where motivation quietly breaks down.
Instead, stay specific and calm. Just ask yourself, What is the next small step I can actually do today, rather than trying to solve everything at once?
And another important thing is remembering your real reason, not the dramatic version you felt in a moment of motivation, but the honest, quiet reason that actually matters to you in real life.
Yes, maybe you started because you wanted peace, confidence, health, stability, or self-respect. Something real and human, not just an emotional burst of motivation.
And when things feel difficult, coming back to that reason can help you stay grounded, because it reminds you that your effort actually has meaning beyond the current struggle.
Another powerful idea is allowing imperfect consistency, because perfect effort that disappears is less powerful than imperfect effort that continues over time.
Yes, because consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means showing up again and again, even if the quality is not always perfect every single day.
And sometimes just staying in the process, even in a messy way, is already a form of success that people underestimate too often.
Exactly. And instead of asking yourself, do I feel inspired today? A better question is, can I stay with this a little longer? Because that question builds patience and discipline over time.
And sometimes staying is the bravest thing you can do. Not doing more, not pushing harder, but simply refusing to give up when things feel slow or unexciting.
Yes, because staying is not always dramatic. It is often quiet, invisible, and made of small, repeated choices that slowly shape who you become.
And over time, those small choices add up and start changing your identity in ways you don't immediately notice but deeply feel later.
That's why patience and trust in the process are so important, because growth often takes place quietly before it becomes visible in real life.
And if you constantly stop every time things feel boring or difficult, you never actually give yourself enough time for progress to appear naturally.
Exactly, because most people quit not at the beginning, but right before something meaningful is about to develop in their journey.
So maybe the real skill is learning how to stay through the uncomfortable middle without letting temporary emotions decide your long-term direction.
Yes, and also learning how to be kind to yourself in that process, because self-criticism during difficult phases often makes people leave too soon.
And kindness doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means not attacking yourself every time things don't go perfectly according to plan.
Exactly. It means staying steady even when your motivation changes, and understanding that progress is still happening even when you cannot clearly see it yet.
So instead of asking, why am I not there yet? Maybe a better question is, am I still moving forward in some way?
Because if you are still here, still trying, still learning, then your story is still being written, and it is definitely not over yet.
And that's such an important reminder, because most people underestimate how powerful it is just to stay in the game a little longer than they usually would.
Yes, because success is not always about doing something extreme or extraordinary. It's often about continuing the ordinary actions when they no longer feel exciting or new.
And that's where discipline slowly replaces motivation, because motivation comes and goes. But discipline is what keeps you moving even on quiet, uninteresting days.
Exactly. And people often think discipline is something harsh or strict, but in reality, it is just a decision you keep making again and again to not give up on yourself.
And when you look at it like that, staying becomes less about pressure and more about self-respect, like you are honoring the promise you made to yourself at the beginning.
Yes, and even if progress feels slow, every time you choose to continue, you are building something invisible but very powerful inside your character.
And that invisible growth eventually shows up in visible ways: confidence, clarity, patience, and emotional strength that wasn't there before.
Exactly. But the tricky part is, you usually don't notice that change while it is happening, because it happens so gradually that your mind adjusts without realizing it.
And that's why many people give up too early. They are expecting transformation to feel dramatic, but real transformation is often quiet and slow.
Yes, and sometimes you only recognize how far you've come when you look back at who you were before you started, not while you are still in the middle of the journey.
And that's why reflection is so important, because it helps you see progress that your emotions might be hiding from you in the present moment.
Exactly. And if you can learn to trust the process even when it feels unclear, you give yourself a much better chance of reaching the result you originally wanted.
But at the same time, it's also important to be honest with yourself, because not every path is meant to continue forever. And sometimes change in direction is actually healthy.
Yes, but that decision should come from clarity, not frustration, because there is a big difference between "this isn't right for me" and "I am just tired right now."
And learning that difference is part of emotional maturity, because it helps you avoid both unnecessary quitting and unnecessary suffering.
Exactly. And when you learn to balance patience with awareness, you start making decisions that are more aligned with your long-term growth rather than short-term emotion.
And maybe that's the real message of today's conversation, that staying, even in small ways, is often what leads to the biggest transformation later.
Yes, because most breakthroughs don't come from starting over again and again. They come from staying long enough to see something finally change.
And even when it feels like nothing is happening, life might actually be quietly building something meaningful in the background.
So if you are in that phase right now, don't rush to escape it too quickly, because what feels slow today might be exactly what changes everything tomorrow.
And maybe that's the final truth we want to leave you with today. You don't always need more talent or a perfect plan. Sometimes you just need a little more time and a little more trust in yourself.
Yes, and also the understanding that slow progress is still progress, even when it doesn't feel exciting or visible in the moment.
And if you are going through a quiet phase right now, don't assume you are stuck. Maybe you are simply building something that hasn't fully shown itself yet.
Exactly. And remember, every small decision to continue, every time you choose not to quit, is shaping the person you are becoming in ways you might not see today.
But at the same time, be kind to yourself, because growth is not a straight line. It has pauses, doubts, and messy moments, and that is completely normal.
Yes, and the real strength is not in never feeling doubt, but in learning how to keep going even when doubt appears.
So instead of asking, "Why am I not there yet?" maybe ask yourself, "What is still growing in me right now?"
Because if you are still here, still trying, still learning, then your journey is already working, even if the results are not fully visible yet.
And that is something worth appreciating: your effort, your patience, and your willingness to continue, even when it's not easy.
So keep going, not perfectly, not dramatically, but steadily, because sometimes the quietest effort creates the loudest change in the end.
And if you ever feel like quitting too early, just remember, what looks like nothing today might actually be the beginning of everything tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the English Leap podcast from Speak Like Leader.
Take care of yourself, trust your process, and don't walk away too quickly from your own growth.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone!